Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 292. We're breaking down the NFL top 100 list. It's going to be fun to discuss this with these guys because this list is pretty horrible. Joined once again by Jacob Kamaker. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Kenny and I are matching, as we were just talking about. Right. So I feel like we're already off to a good start. This was not coordinated, nothing about it. But ready to break down this list or, whatever they did when they threw all the darts at the board of random player names across the league.
Yeah, you guys say you're not coordinating, but I have a feeling that there were some text messages saying we're going to wear the same color. I don't know. That's my theory. Kenny, you're back from your honeymoon. Congratulations. I hope you had fun there. And how are you?
Oh, bro, I'm great. Being married's great. I like being married. It's fun. I like whenever I get to use the term "my wife." It's like a fun phrase. It's like, oh, my wife did this. My wife told me to put on my seatbelt. My wife told me don't put on dirty underwear. Make sure it's clean before you put it on. My wife says all these good things.
All these regulations and rules are they are fun. It is weird. Like at first you're like my wife, and then you're like, wait, that really okay? And then like you get used to it. And now it's second nature. So we're gonna break down the NFL top 100 list. This list was awful. So we're gonna have a lot of fun discussing it. Before we begin, well, first two things. One, please hit subscribe if you're watching YouTube. That'd help us out a lot. Hit the like button, share this. It would mean a lot to us. Second, Kenny, you sent me a tweet from Antonio Gates about the NFL top 100 list. I want to preface this top 100 list by referencing the Gates tweet because it kind of explains how bad this is or why it's so bad. So Kenny, take it away.
I don't have it in front of me. I tried to find it, but I'm just going to paraphrase it. Basically, Antonio Gates says, and by the way, I didn't realize Antonio Gates was still in the league. Like, I forgot he was still in the NFL. Like is this 2007? Like, what? I didn't realize. Anyway, Antonio Gates, obviously future Hall of Famer, but he said when he was making his top 100 list, he said, "I literally never heard of half of the players."
Oh man!
Wait, what? These are the guys that are determining who's on the list. And he goes, I'm looking at the list of the whole NFL, and I'm just like, I don't even know who half these guys are. And I just I don't think most NFL players know, like they don't watch a lot. If you're not in the same division or, if you're in the AFC, you only play an NFC team once every 4 years. You may never have even seen film on certain players, right? Other than maybe watching Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. So am I crazy to think? I think we might actually know these players better than the NFL players do.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. Like if you're a quarterback, you're watching film. If you're a linebacker, you're probably watching film. Unless you're a quarterback named Blake Bortles, then you're not watching film. But for the most part, I think you're right. I think most players don't know all the players. I've had conversations before where I kind of reference something, and players like, oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, and so I'm like, really? I'm telling you good points about like your profession. Seems like weird. It's like weird. Like think about like going into like a dentist's office and like you not being a dentist and be like, and then you talk about dentistry, and they're like, oh wow, I didn't know about that. It's such a bizarre concept. So that I don't know. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's it's a classic case of like, I think the players also, when they're playing an opponent, they're focused very specifically on their matchup. So, if you're a wide receiver, the cornerbacks you're going up against like really well, and maybe some of the safeties, so their tendencies, but you focus on the guys you're playing against. You're not maybe looking at as broad a stroke across the league. So, I mean, some guys know more than other guys, as we see. But Antonio Gates, at this point, I don't think he's been with the team for a couple of years, but I guess he hasn't officially retired yet. So if he doesn't know half the players, it's going to be easier for him to pick 100. But, he might miss some of the good younger guys who weren't in the league at the same, or who haven't been in the league quite as long as him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that might explain why some of the older players are still on this list. So let's get to it. We're going to go in segments of 10. So 100 to 91, you had 100 was Lavonte David, then Darren Waller, Brandon Brooks, Budda Baker, Chris Carson, Frank Clark, Jason Kelce, Allen Robinson, Darius Slay, Gradey Jarrett. I didn't think this segment of 10 was that bad. I think that Jason Kelce, arguably the best center in the NFL, should have been higher. Chris Carson, not sure about him, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Kenny agrees with me. But Jacob, what do you think about this 10?
Yeah, I don't think this one's particularly bad. I probably wouldn't put Darren Waller in the top 100 yet. I mean, like, he had a really great year last year, but it's 1 year and he's been like kind of bouncing around the league for 4. So is it like a Gary Barnidge flash in the pan year, or is he going to be more consistent? I tend to think he'll be more consistent, but you never know. I also think Brandon Brooks should be much higher. I'm big on offensive line play in general, and particularly like guys on the interior who can block and be consistent. And I know Brooks has had some injury issues, like he's out this year with an Achilles, and he's had to miss some games too. I believe he has an anxiety problem, but I would put him higher than 98th on this list. Like, that's just him barely making the cut. I think both him and Kelce, I agree with, should be higher on this list. I would put Brooks probably in my top 60, but my top 60 probably would have a ton of offensive linemen, so I might be a little bit biased. But yeah, I don't have a ton I disagree with in this segment, though. I thought this one was not a terrible start.
I agree 100% with Jacob just said about linemen. In my top 50 would be chock full of defensive and offensive linemen, way more than I think that the list currently is. I think generally people grossly underrate. The average NFL fan underrates those positions greatly. They're so important. I mean, as an Eagles fan, the Eagles won the Super Bowl largely because of their offensive and defensive lines. That's the primary reason. That is why that team was so good for so much of that year. And in my opinion, Brandon Brooks, I think maybe I'm biased. I'm an Eagles fan, so I got to divorce myself a little bit, right? But he might be the best guard, maybe the best interior lineman in the NFL. I mean, he's in that conversation. He, in my mind, is like a top 30 type guy. Like he's in that conversation. Kelce should be a little higher in this list in my mind. It's not egregious, but should be a little higher. I think Lavonte David should be higher in this list. I think he's a really smart player as well. I feel like you know what you're going to get. The one guy here is egregious to me is Chris Carson. Hey, this guy doesn't belong in this top 100. Come on, this is embarrassing. Stop it. He's not that good. He's fine. Like, he's okay. He's a scrappy guy, but come on, like, he's not top 100. I think there are probably several running backs in the NFL that are not on this list that I would take above Chris Carson. And I think there's a significant gap between him and most of the other running backs on this list. The fact that he's on this list, I think, is ridiculous, but the rest of the top 10, I guess, is, 3 players should be way higher and 1 player shouldn't be on the list. So I don't know. I guess they got it 60% right. That's still an F in most schools, right?
Yeah, that's true. So I agree with what you're saying about the offensive and defensive lines. Like, look at how John Lynch is drafting. Like, each first round pick is an offensive or defensive lineman for the most part. Like, that's how he's built the team, and he's had a lot of success. I didn't mention Brandon Brooks because he's out for the year. That's the only reason why. And in my head when I was doing this analysis, I'm like, okay, the players are like, okay, he's out for the year. We're still going to put him in the top 100. But then I thought, based on Gates's comments, they probably don't even know he's out for the year. So, with that in mind, he should definitely be higher. Brandon Brooks, when healthy, is a top 50 player, if not higher.